Good evening, everyone. As always, thank you all for joining me. And as always, I am your host. For those of you again watching for the first time, I welcome each and every one of you. Please do feel free to subscribe for further updates or any breaking news if we happen to have any. Be sure to hit that little notification bell if we happen to have any breaking news. And again, I will do my very best to bring that to you guys. But with that being said, everyone, I hope everyone is having a blessed weekend as far as we are preparing to go into another week. Um, but before we go any further, let me apologize to all of my viewers. I know it's been quite some time since I last did a video. I'm sure many of you remember it was just last month here in the downtown Chicago area where there was mass protests, riots and looting had took place throughout the downtown area. Um, and for the most part, when I really think about it, guys, it really had done something to me. It changed me. When I was down there, it felt as though I was in a third world country, guys. It really did. Um, I almost kind of didn't even recognize downtown for a minute. It was taken over by absolute anarchy and chaos. There were young men and women throughout the streets vandalizing, defacing public buildings, and setting vehicles on fire, including law enforcement personnel vehicles. Um, they were flipping over squad cars, as some of you probably had seen in the video. It was just absolute chaos, guys. And for the most part, when I say that it did something to me, if you heard that pop, I apologize. We're getting closer to the 4th of July. But it changed me. These past few weeks since that encounter in the downtown area, I've suffered from a multitude of anxiety attacks. I've had a hard time sleeping. I've become angry for all the wrong reasons. And it's just not right at all. I've been taking it out on all the wrong people. I don't want to necessarily say that I suffer from PTSD because I never served this country. But again, with the entire situation that unfolded just last month in the downtown area here, it was just absolute chaos. It was unlike anything I've ever witnessed before in my entire life. Again, as I've stated, I felt as though I was in a third world country. I was just walking throughout the downtown area. I felt utterly helpless as I was walking down one main street, and it was just car after car after car parked, double parked or whatever, along this main avenue. And individuals were just running in and out of major retailers there and just taking whatever they could get their hands on. And this was all happening right in front of me. It was unlike anything I've ever seen before. I went past multiple businesses as they were looted. Not only were they looted, they were vandalized. The windows were smashed. There was graffiti. There was markings along walls such as F the police, F12, ACAB, whatever that stood for, among many other things. There was even some graffiti here and there. It was written along walls that said F America, F Trump, kill police officers, F white people, whatever. I mean, you couldn't make this stuff up, guys. I wasn't trying. I was there. I witnessed it with my own eyes. I seen it firsthand. I seen the absolute destruction that these young radical leftist liberal dirtbags, you know what I really want to say, had did to the downtown area. They looted many major businesses. Again, I don't really need to describe it to all of you. I witnessed it with my own eyes, guys. It was unlike anything I've ever seen before. We've seen people who were there throughout the entire country trying to protect their businesses get viciously assaulted by these left-wing radical liberals throughout the country when all they were trying to do was just protect their businesses. I think it was a former captain in St. Louis, Missouri, who was trying to protect a friend's business as it was being looted for TVs and appliances, viciously gunned down by another young black man for only trying to protect his friend's business. And when you hear about situations like this, you can't help but wonder, where is Black Lives Matter? How much do Black Lives Matter really matter to black folks when every time you turn on the news, you hear about another black life lost due to the hands of gang violence? And it's not by the hands of another police officer, even though you got those on the far left that want to talk about police are the biggest gang throughout the country, which we all know is a bunch of bullshit. Excuse my French, but I'm sure that many of you know where I'm coming from, guys. It wasn't long after, or beforehand, a black federal police officer, I believe in California, also lost his life trying to protect a business as well, as mass riots and looting took place throughout the country just last month. Starting with Minneapolis, Minnesota, where we watched firsthand in real time via social media as a local Target and many other businesses there were looted and vandalized and even set ablaze. Many others who were there just to watch were injured or hurt or viciously assaulted by those on the radical far left. Domestic terrorists who were viciously assaulted. And then of course here, as the days were going by, we know that one business in southwest suburban Cicero was looted. It was a liquor store, and the people actually took to the streets. They had enough of it at that point. They were not about to have it. Large amounts of gangs chose to call a truce among one another to come together to protect the streets and protect many of the businesses. They were armed with machetes, baseball bats, sticks, you name it. Even as I was walking down the street, I was confronted by one of them. I don't know if it's because they didn't recognize me or whatever the case may have been, but I kind of understand where they were coming from at the same time, but many others via social media were worried that those kind of actions there were going to spark a huge race riot, including myself. And for the most part, I'm not black, as you can obviously tell, even though my wife is black. Things were very chaotic. All I was doing, and again, as I've stated, all I was doing was just walking, and I was confronted by an individual. And there were many others, as some of you have probably seen the videos via social media. Some people who were just driving down the street, who happened to be African American, were viciously assaulted just driving down the street out of fear that they were there just to loot and vandalize businesses. And that's why I say many others have said as well that we were in fear that we were on the verge of a mass race riot throughout the country. And there's no doubt about it, guys. We are on the verge of mass civil unrest throughout this country. Unlike anything that we have seen just a month ago. And I've done a video about this a while back, if any of you want to go look at it, about civil unrest in America. As we see many of these this younger generation becoming more radicalized, demanding the removal of Confederate statues and defacing them, and even one video of the radical left toppling over a statue of George Washington and laying an American flag over it and setting it on fire, including now trying to topple over a statue of Abraham Lincoln, standing over an African American slave who happened to have been set free. And now the radical left are demanding the removal of statues of Abraham Lincoln. And not only that, I think it's the founder of BLM, Shaun King, just recently demanding the removal of statues of Jesus Christ, claiming they represent white supremacy. You can't make this stuff up, guys. You really can't. And then, of course, when I woke up this morning, hearing the news that now the radical left is demanding the ban of the Pledge of Allegiance because they deem it racist. That's right, folks. Everything is racist to the radical left nowadays. We know that Chaz or Chop or whatever you want to call them, they control 6 city blocks of the downtown Seattle, Washington area. They control an entire precinct there where they get to decide who can walk through the neighborhood and who can't. We know, when many of us have seen the video where they were trying to topple over another statue in Washington, D.C., just down the street from the White House, where many of the protesters clashed with law enforcement there because they deem it racist. That's right, folks. But the question I really have for all of you is, again, when it comes to all of the black on black crime throughout the country, where's BLM? Anybody ever thought to ask yourself that question? No, you haven't. As I've stated before, phony outrage. Where are they? It was only just a little over 2 weeks ago, here in the Chicago area, nearly 104 people were wounded. 14 fatally wounded, including a 14-year-old and one as young as 3. And of course, as many of you may know, the father of the 3-year-old child refuses to cooperate with authorities, therefore leaving many to believe he knew who the shooter was, but refuses once again to come forward. And it was just late last night. Get this. Late last night. a 1-year-old, was tragically, fatally killed while in the car with its mother, including 2 young girls just a little to the south of where I reside now. I believe one of them is young as 14 years old, once again. I could be wrong. Who fatally lost her life while out barbecuing with her family. And we got our own mayor here in Chicago who would rather investigate our own law enforcement personnel instead of investigating this crime that's taking place throughout the country. Typical Democrats. Typical of the Democrat Party. But that's no surprise, where we know that back in Minneapolis, Minnesota, where they voted unanimously 12-0 to dismantle the Minneapolis, Minnesota Police Department altogether. Can you imagine what that's going to be like? Have you ever imagined who are you going to call when someone is trying to break into your home? Oh, that's okay. Let's just call a freaking crisis counselor, right? Or just grab a bucket of rocks. And the next time somebody tries to break in your house, let's just throw as many rocks at them as we can in hopes that it will stop them. Can't make this stuff up, guys. You really, really can't. It's really unfortunate. It really is. Moving on, guys. Of course, as always, I will be leaving links in the description box below. But again, it just really boggles me. It really does. It's really unfortunate with everything that is going on now. With now that we have moved into phase 4, where many businesses, essential businesses, have now opened to the public with some restrictions. But again, we have now moved into phase 4. But the only problem is with us moving into phase 4, numbers of COVID-19 related cases have spiked through the roof throughout California, Texas, and both Florida, where I believe it was just yesterday that we learned that over 9,000 cases of COVID-19 individuals were reported in just a span of 24 hours, guys. That is correct. But again, I'm not denying that this isn't a real pandemic. I mean, it's a very real virus, and unfortunately it has costed people their lives, guys. But it's all about common sense. But moving on here, guys, this is out of Breitbart News, where of course I will be leaving links in the description box below, where this is by Kyle Morris, where the headline here reads, Minnesota spike in number of positive COVID cases for younger people. That is correct, you guys. Where the article here reads, if you give me just one quick second, it's a terrible situation with everything that is unfolding, guys, throughout the country. But the article here goes to read, Minnesota has witnessed a spike in the number of younger people who are testing positive for COVID-19 as the pandemic continues to grow throughout the country. And of course that is the case because we heard about it in the past, just last month with many of the people who took to the streets, where we've seen articles about those who had took to the streets who were reported to now be diagnosed with the virus, guys. That is correct. But that is no surprise. But of course, moving on here, where the article reads, according to data released Sunday by the Minnesota Department of Health, 523 new cases were identified Sunday, bringing the total number of coronavirus positive residents in the state to 35,000 549, guys. That is absolutely correct. Well, we do know that the numbers are now growing. But the article here further reads, the spike in the number of people who are testing positive for the virus can be seen amongst people in their 20s, with that age group making up the largest group of positive cases in the state. That is correct. Of course, with many of these groups taking place, gathering throughout the country for protests, it's mainly a lot of those who are in their 20s or younger, guys. That is correct. But it's a terrible situation with everything that is going on. But how many of you notice that with everything that's going on throughout the country, with all the rallies and the protests and the vandalizing and the looting, it's primarily taking place throughout Democrat-run cities, guys? That is correct. Once again, it was just the other night where we saw mass amounts of looting and violence in Portland, Oregon, once again, where protesters took to the streets, where they looted many businesses there, even attempted to set a precinct on fire with officers in that station at the time. However, though, we do know that the officers were luckily to make it out of the station, and some of the individuals there were taken into custody. Hopefully, we are hoping that they will be charged with arson or attempted murder. But moving on, guys, where the article reads here, excuse me if you give me 1 second, in regards to the COVID-19 cases, it's a terrible situation with everything that's going on. But moving on here, where this is out of New Jersey, where Democrats charged with mail-in voter fraud. Can you just imagine that, you guys? Well, we know here that the Democrats are pushing for mail-in ballots, where they are hoping here in Illinois to cheat the Republican Party out of the polls to try to take control of the House, both the Senate and the White House, guys. That is absolutely correct, guys. But here the article reads, where I will be leaving links in the description box below, where the headline here reads, New Jersey Democrats charged with mail-in voter fraud. Man, oh man, oh man, can you just imagine that, you guys? But moving on here, where the, I apologize, where the article reads, two Paterson, New Jersey councilmen and two men linked to the councilman's campaign have been charged with election fraud, mail-in voting fraud, and illegal possession of mail-in ballots. Whew. Moving on, guys. It just doesn't get any more ridiculous than that. But the article further reads, late last week, New Jersey's Attorney General Gruel, announced election fraud charges against Paterson City Councilman Michael Jackson, Democrat, which is no surprise there, Councilman-elect Alex Mendez, another Democrat, and Shalim, I'm not even going to pretend to pronounce that last name, and Abu Razian, of course, another Democrat, charged with election fraud. Shalim is the brother of Paterson City Councilman Shohin, the city elected official behind the city allowing the Islamic call to prayer. Abu Razim is linked to Khalik's re-election campaign, according to Gruel. Well, imagine that, guys. A Muslim man attempting to rig the elections against the Republican Party. That's no surprise whatsoever, guys. But of course, for the sake of time, I'm going to cut this video a little short, guys. But of course, I will be leaving links in the description box below. But of course, guys, it's a terrible situation with everything that continues to unfold throughout the country, guys. But with that being said, the headline here reads, gunman opens fire, wounds two following argument at Pee Wee football game. That is correct, you guys. Once again, another terrible situation in another Democrat-run city, I guarantee you. Where the headline, where the article reads here, a gunman in Fort Worth, Texas, wounded two. When he opened fire following an argument at a Pee Wee football game. That is correct, guys. But moving on here, what we do know as well, another individual, he doesn't deserve to be called a man, a 19-year-old individual who is now in custody for fatally wounding a 16 and 17-year-old children for asking him his height, guys. That is correct. He is now in custody according to local articles here. But moving on, guys, for the sake of time. But with that being said, if we happen to have any more breaking news, I will do my very best to bring that to you guys. But with that being said, for those of you once again watching for the first time, please do feel free to subscribe. Be sure to hit that little notification bell. With that being said, everyone, God bless. Please do stay tuned.